When I woke up around 6 a.m. on a weekday in February, it was supposed to be the typical day when I eat breakfast in bed, push myself to get up and do my normal morning routine, and walk over to my computer and start my remote job at 8 a.m. However, that day turned out to be different. What happened next is a blur, a fractured memory pieced together later by the words of my sister. But in that moment, as the clock ticked relentlessly forward, I was in the zone of uncertainty. I woke up distressed, frustrated, and angry. I found myself expressing my inner turmoil. Why am I still alive? I demanded, the question hanging heavy in the air, suffocating me with its weight. I should be in a coma. My sister must have been equally distressed. The words tumbled out raw with despair and as if my very existence defied logic. She was in a hard place somewhere between shock and fear. My sister always brings breakfast to me in the bed that she has been doing for a couple of years to ease the burden of depression. She would bring me that cute little mug with tiny Twinings tea and accompanied by a toast smeared with almond or peanut butter sliced bananas. Yet her comforting presence could not soothe the storm that was raging within me. After all, I had a disagreement with her the night before, which warranted unnecessary anger, which was created by years of inner turmoil. I felt inadequate, uncared for, misunderstood, and disrespected. There is so much to the story of this unfortunate choice due to a cascade of challenging events, compounded by the sense of a lacking support system. That morning, I requested coffee, which was an unusual request according to my sister, because the previous year I switched to tea due to the caffeine and caffeine worsening my anxiety. I could barely hold the mug in my hand and spilled it on the sheets and on my top. She knew what had happened and she was scared. She called my psychiatrist. What should I do? She asked him. Tanya has overdosed, and I'm not sure how many pills she had taken. He recommended to take me to the ER immediately. She was at a hard place when I thought my hard place should end. She helped me out of bed. I could barely walk. To help me changing my clothes. I insisted to wear my Uggs and splash some perfume and put some lipstick before going to the hospital. How odd that I thought that I wanted to die and I'm worrying about these things. I even called my supervisor, telling her that I'm sick and I won't be at work. I am going to the ER. How odd that I was worried about responsibility, one thing that got me to the burnout phase in the first place. Of course, at that time, I'm not realizing what I am doing because of what has happened. After being admitted to the ER for the entire day of completely no memory, evening had arrived. The decision was to place me on an involuntary hold at a psychiatric facility due to a suicide attempt. I was in this strange place with the same rage that brought me here. As I regained cognitive function and able to recall one moment to the next, I thought I had been kidnapped, and not knowing the magnitude of the situation, I grappled with the harsh truth. I had given up on life, and my heart was beating, and the sound of my breathing meant I was alive. This new world was not as good as the outside world that I attempted to escape. I realized my weakness and despair, which had brought shame to the dire situation. Depression is a big deal. You have to be strong. Those were the words of my terminally ill mother in the hospital a few years ago when I was caring for her during a rare and unforgiving cancer. What does that mean? I asked myself when each day I felt that crumbling is something I cannot do as a caregiver, even if I had moments of closing my door, crying all night in bed, or at my desk at work. Juggling a full-time job and caregiving duties was a necessity, but not for the faint of heart. I managed regardless if my breaking point was every day. She passed away, and my world as I knew it was over. I crumbled, making each moment as painful as the last. I had to recover from my difficult caregiving duties, which was exhausting, and face grief at the same time. The illness took her, but yet I was still alive and did not understand this puzzling thing called life. I thought I did, but it is a whole new story during grief. I may have had mild depression before her illness, and it magnified during it, but definitely didn't go away during grief. Depression is not a choice. It's a relentless force that robs you of hope, leaving only despair in its wake. Yet, amidst the darkness, I found a glimmer of resilience, a stubborn refusal to surrender to the void. I pushed myself because I have to be strong. I faced grief and everything unbearable about it, even temporarily saw a grief psychologist. I did not have a great support system as family life was volatile, and I did not know who was on my side. A few years before that, my aunt passed away from breast cancer, which brought all family together, including cousins and family friends. And at that time, my uncle was sent to a nursing home with Parkinson's. At the same time, my ill mom was fretting his illness while battling hers. My two cousins were not supportive during my time, but we helped their side of the family. The coldness was a slap in my face during my grief as they disappeared and never reconnected. Later, it was known what hate and resentment can do to the family. I wanted kindness and compassion, but you learn that people can't be changed or made to be better. A couple of months later, my boyfriend unexpectedly passed away as I learned that mid-December night from his father. Tony has passed away, and sorry to tell you this news while you continue grieving your mother. My body stood still, and my shock did not allow me to cry, as I had already been doing that for the past couple of months. Tony, my dear friend, who was the only one to stand by me during my caregiving of my mom, who bought me flowers from my desk at work when no one did, who planned to spend together during the holidays, has vanished from where my mom had gone. Why both of you together? I questioned. The kindest people, the most important at that moment, gone. This round of grief was no break to recover. Only going to work every day, that environment was not pleasant and sometimes toxic. I had to be strong. I could use some comfort during this time, but it was hard to get it. Two friends had already disappeared during the time of my mom's illness. My sister and father, things were a little unstable, so I did not know really who to rely on and who to reach out to. One friend was present, but as time would allow, they have to go on with their own lives and their own issues, and it was really hard to connect. Where were the good friends and family members when I needed them the most? Their absence echoed loudly in the silence, a constant reminder of the emotional pain that consumed me from within. The silence made me feel forgotten. In between my back-to-back grief was the urgent care visit for a back spasm that occurred during work, a kitchen fall during grief, which sent me to the ER also. As the days stretched into months, I found myself locked in a relentless battle, a battle not just for survival, but for the very essence of my being. How can I continue working when it is exhausting to get out of bed? How can I keep my house when it's becoming unaffordable and hard to maintain? How can I deal with people that are disrespectful and do the simple stuff under the suffocating weight of depression? Each moment felt like an eternity, a relentless onslaught of despair threatening to consume me whole, but I have to be strong. No one prepares you for the depths of despair, and sometimes support feels non-existent. I had to find the courage on how to get help when I had broken apart and depression had taken me hostage. No one was present to rescue me. You hear those voices telling you that this is enough constantly, and they don't shut off. I dodged them and continued. I woke up to the harsh reality daily that I needed to reach out for help, which took 6 months from the first thought of suicide. Depression is a big deal. But guess what? I was strong, as you will see year after year, of battling depression. I did it until I did not. I had to be strong, but resilience has its limits. For years, I juggled the weight of caregiving, grief, and loss, each burden heavier than the last, leaving me with emptiness staring back at me. I had to find the resilience to seek help. No one helped me, and I did not know what that meant. The last time I saw a therapist was 20 years ago, and the last time I had these deep thoughts was in my late teens to early 20s, so this is new. What does help mean? It took me a month to find a psychiatrist. This was courage through desperation. Again, no one helping me or leading the way. I was determined to break free from the chains of depression. I accepted for the first time in my life to take an antidepressant and an anti-anxiety medication. I was willing to try anything for my mental state. It was part of a lifeline, but I still had to do the work to improve my depressed state. But even medication could not shield me from the harsh realities of life, a toxic work environment, strained relationships, and the relentless march of a pandemic that upended our world. My uncle passed away in a nursing home during COVID, and my cousins got colder, filled with animosity and no regard for me or my family members, despite being present as a supportive family member. I continued to battle with severe depression, trying to keep my job, avoid a vaccine due to personal beliefs, dealing with pushback, and juggling a lot of other challenging things that I had to face on my own and figure it out, and the potential of losing a job. After, with the hardness of trying to keep my house, not determining who's my true friends, no one helping me, and people who I thought to be on my side disappearing, I had to push to be strong. What happened to a couple of friendships in which the problems were not as heavy as mine, but their solution was not to be a friend. I did everything to make a living, to care for my home, to call the plumber, to take care of the repairs, do anything to keep things going. It became deeper as I struggled with, am I doing enough? So do I have enough? Do I need to push for a better job, better lifestyle? Again, have I done enough? Why suddenly the feelings of inadequacy with no confidence, but a whole lot of sensitivity and the need to isolate myself from a world that I thought was becoming harsher? I pushed and pushed through breakout and burnout until one day I could not take one more disagreement, one more act of unkindness in a cold world, and it was time to be done for good. Depression is a big deal. This is the reality of mental illness, a reality that goes unnoticed, overshadowed by stigma and shame. But it's a reality that demands to be heard, to be acknowledged, and above all, to be met with compassion and understanding. For in the darkness, there is hope. No matter how much you push, and even if it is the end, where you get another chance. I was discharged, and the social work at the facility informed me that I've been given another chance following my unsuccessful suicide attempt. I'm now back in the real world, returning to normal life and work without anyone knowing or asking about my absence. People who were already out of my life having no clue if I'm alive, is that does not matter because I have been gone. Anyway, however, a couple of precious family members are relieved that I still exist, giving me cards and flowers in the midst of my illness. Being back to life does not mean it's easier. Far away from that. It means that I have to rely on healthier coping mechanisms to deal with it. Depression is a significant concern due to the impact on the individual's life. It should be no different than cancer. There are society flaws and stigmas on how depression should be something not to expose, a sign of weakness, a setback, and something people can tolerate or know how to help. A society where mental strength, doing well with high job titles, achievement, obtaining more material positions, competition, moving forward, moving on, attention, self-centeredness, staying positive, being tough, and not exposing powerlessness or cowardice, not being emotional, defying rejection, and being essentially a tough cookie is valued. A depressed person further endures pushback from family members, friends, coworkers, neighbors, or anyone for that matter that they cannot show a sign of weakness or something is wrong with you. You don't belong, as everyone is progressing and being productive or growing in life. You are further rejected and isolated, exacerbating your depression and looking as lazy, odd, weird, and that you should have an off switch for the depression. People may dismiss and ignore you and choose not to continue being friends or part of family, making it worse for you as people do not care and act like you don't matter. It is a vicious cycle created by personal issues and challenging events and not helped by a non-empathetic world or people in your life who cannot or will not help or simply make you invisible. Moreover, the utilization of antidepressants, while instrumental in managing symptoms for many, is often viewed with skepticism and accompanied by misconceptions. This complicates the process of finding an effective treatment as individuals may feel uncertain about pursuing pharmaceutical interventions, further exacerbating their feelings of isolation and a lack of social support. The daily responsibilities that individuals face, such as maintaining a job, fulfilling financial obligations, become particularly challenging amidst the haze of depression. These expectations often feel insurmountable, perpetuating a persistent sense of inadequacy. Furthermore, the pervasive emotional pain experienced by those battling depression can result in a deep sense of disconnection from society. This alienation can foster a reluctance to reach out for help, as individuals may feel that their struggles are neither understood or acknowledged. It is vital to recognize that a lack of reliable social networks and family support can exacerbate the impact of depression. This isolation can be especially profound for those who have experienced loss or trauma and are navigating their emotional distress without adequate coping mechanisms. Additionally, the dismissive attitudes prevalent in society toward depression can lead to individuals feeling overlooked and emotionally neglected, intensifying their sense of detachment and deepening the challenge of reaching out for help and moving toward recovery. The key is when this happens to you and your fight has ended, as your mind might deceive or convince you, call your psychiatrist, your therapist, or 988, regardless if it's 2 p.m., 11 p.m., or 3 a.m. Vent out your anger, frustrations, and your emotional turmoil to someone who is willing to help. And listen, sometimes that's all you need at that fiery moment. Allow them to convince you of why you should remain alive, whatever it takes, even if it is medication to place you in a calmer state until you are able to try again tomorrow. Depression is a big deal. Give yourself another chance, no matter how bad it has gotten.